Welcome back to Nuts on Cars. So today's video, I'm going to take my first drive in a Porsche 993. Now we've had this car since January 2019, but it hasn't really featured much on the channel. So I thought it's about time we talk you around it, tell you why we bought it, a little bit of history about it, and then my first initial impressions of a 993. Having recently driven the 3.2 a few weeks ago, it'd be interesting to see. There's actually only 6 years difference, but I think you can, obviously by looking at it, it's a much more modern car, so we'll see how that feels. Anyway, so talking you around it, so we've paid £43,000 for this. It's done 75,000 miles. It's a 3-owner car. Cosmetically, it's not absolutely perfect. There are a few little blemishes, but mechanically, it's lovely. It's had a service every year. The previous owners had it since 1999, and so yeah, in terms of as an overall package, it was a lovely example. So yeah, couldn't say no really. So I'll talk you through. It's a slate grey car, Carrera 4, with 17-inch cups and air conditioning. That's the only options it's got, but I'll show you around it. So being a Carrera 4, you get obviously the clear indicators. Now again, over the time we've done a few bits to it, spent a bit of money on it, probably spent 2,000 to 3,000 to be honest, just titivating, doing little jobs that always need doing on these. So for example, new lights, just to freshen up the front of it. We do need to do the front fogs, but it's on the list, so they'll get done soon hopefully. It's a tough one really, because it's nice. This one isn't perfect in the way that the 3.2 we've got is, and it's nice being able to drive it and not worry about it. So there's stone chips, there's a couple of little marks on the paint, and it kind of adds to the enjoyment because it means you can take it out and not stress. So we're contemplating having a full respray, but then it's like, A, we want to know a good place to do it, and B, then are you going to suddenly be paranoid about going out in it all the time? So it's hard to know what to do. But other things we've done, we've had the cup alloys refurbished. Now for me, on a 993, the cup alloys you just have to have them. They did come with 16-inch wheels as standard, but you really, again, don't see many with those. But yeah, these and the Targa wheels are definitely the nicest. Then yeah, clear indicators on the front. You actually do still get an orange indicator on the Carrera 4, so don't worry if your car's got that. That's how it came from factory, so that's how we'll leave it. Coming around the back, so this is a non-varia ram, being a 1995, and that means it's got 270 horsepower instead of 285, I think it is, but it's actually shorter geared, so I wouldn't get het up on going for a Variam because we've had both, and to be honest, it doesn't really make that much difference. It's more about the actual car itself than picking out one of those. So yeah, coming around the back, you've got again Carrera 4 clear indicators, or the red indicators. You also know it's Carrera 4 by titanium badges, so that's another giveaway. Previous owner actually added the third brake light, probably for safety reasons, because obviously the lights are so low. That was a Variam. Cars with Variam actually came with that standard, I believe. So yeah, that's been added on, so we'll leave that. It's a genuine part. Coming round inside, again, you open the door. It's got the famous kind of Porsche feel to it. Slate grey interior, lovely condition. It's done 75,000 miles, as I say. It's just all nice and tidy, crisp. The carpet's nice, and being so light, obviously, it could be a bit of a nightmare in here keeping it clean. But previous owner's done a good job, and we've tried to make it a little bit better. Yeah, so as I say, we've had 3 993s. We had a Carrera 2 back in 2000, which we paid 43,000 for. That had done 22,000 miles, I think, at the time. And then we had one in 2012, which was a Carrera 4, which had done 120,000 miles. We paid 17,000 for that. And then this one, obviously, we paid 43. So it just shows how, over the time, the values have gone, really. I mean, if you could have snapped up all the classics in 2012, you'd be a very wealthy owner of Porsches now. But really nice example overall. And we're just, over time, I think the enjoyment with these is making them better as you go along. That's part of the ownership, and just titivating, really. So we're enjoying that. But oh yeah, I'm going to take my first drive in one today, see what I think, and we're just going to document it and let you know. So stay tuned for the next clip. First thing that hits you in 993 for me is the silkiness of it. It's one of the purest cars I've ever driven in terms of the creaminess of how everything feels, all the controls, all the mechanics, everything, the noises is so, I can't think of another word other than creamy, and that's how it is. So that's the biggest thing that struck me, and the refinement levels and the actual premium feel. They do say that the 3.2 is, they're kind of like, every time they make a new one, they don't make them like they used to, but for me, this is a step up in the things you touch, feel and hear on a day-to-day basis. This feels like a step up in quality to me. People might disagree with that, with the mechanics of a Carrera 3.2, but that's just how it feels sat here. So in terms of driving it, the thing I've found, to be honest, and I've just wanted to use it for normal stuff, so to the shops, is every time you jump in the car, it feels like a special occasion. And it literally just puts a smiley face. You feel, it just makes you feel good. And I guess that's the Porsche drug, isn't it, that we all keep craving and wanting more of. But you do just want to pot around, drive it normally, enjoy the manual gearbox. I'm a big PDK fan and I'm a big automatic fan just because of the ease of it, but you have to, in my opinion, go for a manual one of these, because you're basically just missing out on you're pulling out one of the senses as such. It's like, it's the way the revs drop when you change gear, and it gives it a little as you go into the next gear, that the noises you get, you can't replicate that in a Tiptronic gearbox. And going back to that creamy feel, one of those biggest parts of that creaminess is the clutch mechanism, the gear throw, which is quite long, but it's just so smooth and enjoyable each time you do it. So for me, it has to be a manual. I know the Tiptronics are cheaper, but if you can get a manual, go for one, because you won't regret it. Other things to mention. Now this is, like we said, a C4, and having driven it a few days now and opened it up on the odd occasion, I've never driven a Carrera 2, obviously, so I can't help but think I would prefer a Carrera 2 in the way that with owning a Porsche and driving a Porsche, you almost do want to feel like you have to have your wits about you and that it could catch you out at any time. And this car is so secure and planted and twitch free. I just crave a little bit of danger, which I imagine you get from a Carrera 2. So if I'm being really picky, I would go for a Carrera 2, but it then comes back to, again, it's more about the example that you're looking at rather than C2, C4, Vari-RAM, non-Vari-RAM. So don't get too het up on it, but that's just how I feel about it. Things also like the steering's quite heavy, and I imagine they do say that the steering's lighter in a Carrera 2, and then it's a bit lighter as a car as well, and you've got all that friction going through the diffs. So we're just gonna open it up a little bit and see how she goes. Impresses me is, as I say, it's not the fastest car in the world, but second's punchy, and then when you go into third, it's actually still got a lot left, and it's actually like third's quicker than second, which surprises you a little bit. But it's so planted, you just don't feel like you can phase it. And that's just typical Carrera 4 Porsche, I guess. The steering's lovely and weighted when you turn in. The third gear is mightily impressive. But obviously you are cracking on a bit when you're doing third gear. So, but it does give you the confidence to do so. You don't feel like you're in a car that's not got many aids to help you. So we've got a nice little bit of windiness here. So a lovely little blip, turn in. Bit of weight to the steering again, nice and planted. It doesn't feel that rear heavy. It feels, you forget that you've got an engine hanging out the back. You can get it very balanced. But definitely a thrill to drive, and boy, it does reward you, and that's impressive. Brakes are good, it's flat through the bends, there's not much body roll. The only roll you get, I think, is you get more pitch on acceleration and braking. Might just be the age of the car, but compared to a modern car, you feel that definitely more than normal. But yeah, going back to just driving it normally, which, yes, you can have a little drive like that every now and again, but actually the most enjoyment from these cars comes from just pottering around and popping out for dinner and popping to the shops, and it comes down to, it's effectively all about the ownership. I see them now as like a piece of art, and it just pulls on the nostalgia strings, doesn't it? You just want to sit in the garage and have a look at them, and just, then you go into the house, you just end up looking at your phone at the pictures you've taken of it. So that is where you'll get the enjoyment, in my opinion. It's not a car that you're gonna bat down a country lane every other day. It's a car to take to a show, to go out for dinner in and enjoy and appreciate the engineering, and we're never going to see this ever again with the way electric cars are going, and so it's only going to get more special with time, surely. So with that comes the fact that I think as well, though, investment wise, if you spend 40 to 60k on one of these, depending on the mileage and the condition, your money has to be safe. They're only going to become in more of a demand, really, and the supply is then obviously going to dry up. So there's only one way that can go, and they are just, there's no way of explaining it, they're just special. In conclusion, my first drive in a 993 was extremely pleasurable, and the highlight for me is probably the normal drives in it, and the stupid things that I really enjoyed, like the fact that the wipers are straight in front of you, because you as the driver are more important to get the screen dry than the passenger is. So there's double wipers on the windscreen. Things like you have to stretch across the car to get to the stereo, which modern cars have all got multifunction steering wheel, but that for some reason is enjoyable. And then things like opening the sunroof, it's quite a noisy mechanism, and it's just little things like that. And then it's things like changing gear, again, even when you're driving normally. When you go into the next gear, it's just got that old car, how do you explain it, like the as you go into gear, and it's, I don't know what it is, every time it's a joy to listen to. And so yeah, there's loads of little things like, as we've mentioned before, the smell that hits you every single time you get in it, the way the doors shut, the gorgeous marble interior. If you can get one with this colour interior, for me it is the best. It just feels $1 million, and yeah, so overall I've very much enjoyed my experience with the 993. So there was a question I asked myself, really. Owning the Cayman, which is probably worth about 30,000, you can pick one of these up for, say, 40,000, probably a bit more for a nice one, but it's so hard, because what are you going to get more enjoyment out of? And the answer is, unfortunately, you need all of them. there is no set 911 that is going to tick all your boxes. There's no answer, there's no one car fits all. Unfortunately for us all, because it means we need hundreds of thousands of pounds, you need every single one. I don't want to give my Cayman S up because I love the way that drives in a different way. But then I also want this in my life, so yeah, it's a bit of a problem. And then I also want the 3.2, the way that spoke to me more effectively really than this, because everything was so dated and old-fashioned. So unfortunately, the conclusion is you need every single model in the Porsche range that they've ever made. And then the problem then is you also need one that you can look at that's perfect, and you then need one that you can drive that's a little bit tatty but mechanically sound. So yeah, it's not good. The addiction is not good. But hopefully it's giving you a little insight of what it's like to jump in the 993 for a first time. And if you like the video, give us a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you soon for another video soon.